Hello and welcome to the Harborview. I'm Joe Collymore. Community Preservation Act proposals for the current round of funding include a new World's End Visitor Center, purchase of the historic Benjamin Lincoln House, affordable housing, and 10 others. Voters at next year's town meeting, and that includes you, will decide which of the following projects recommended by the Hingham Community Preservation Committee they would like to see move forward. The process has just begun for 2019-2020, and more information will be available. The Benjamin Lincoln House proposal is of particular interest because the Lincoln family has lived in the house since the 17th century and has agreed to take it off the market until the CPA process is complete. That's because the family doesn't want it going into the hands of private owners who could possibly change the inside of the house. The house would come with the contents, including a number of historic artifacts, and would likely be used as a learning center museum. Another proposal requests $650,000 for affordable housing under the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust, an issue that's on the minds of many Hinghamites as housing prices continue to escalate. Others include creation of a Benjamin Lincoln Park on Station Street, upgrades to the popular Plymouth River Playground, South Shore Country Club improvements, including a new outdoor pool with a bubble for year-round use, an updated vision for the Inner Harbor Plan, and more. It's interesting to note, said CPC member Vicki Donlan at a recent meeting, that Benjamin Lincoln is not related to Abraham Lincoln, as many people think. Community Preservation Act funding comes from a 1.5% CPA annual taxpayer surcharge that Hingham voters adopted in 2000. The state matches a portion of those funds. CPA funds may only be used for open space acquisition, historic preservation, community housing, and limited recreational projects. The CPC will make its recommendations at the April 2020 town meeting, which has the final say. Some 493 students are currently enrolled at Foster School and are looking forward to a successful new school year. The Massachusetts School Building Authority paid a visit to Foster recently, which was an opportunity for school officials to express concerns about the building's deficiencies and their impact on the educational program and to assess its condition. This is the third time the town has sought partial state reimbursement from the MSBA for what they say is a much-needed major renovation or an entirely new building. The MSBA's decision on the town's third statement of interest is expected this coming December, and school officials remain hopeful that there will be good news this time around. Any costs that would be incurred in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA would be borne by the town and would require a town meeting vote before the project could move forward. Quite a few foster parents and teachers continue to express concerns about the condition of the building. The Traffic Committee is considering changes to ensure safety for residents after receiving concerns about two dangerous corners in Hingham. Residents living on Kimball Beach Road have issued statements about the right turn around the bend in Wampatuck Road. Drivers are taking it without considering residents trying to cross. Residents are looking for a stop sign and more signage around the corner to protect neighborhood children who walk to and from school. A traffic committee meeting last month discussed this intersection and ways to protect the children. Currently, there are only stop signs at the end of Kimball Beach Road and Foley Beach Road, with a crosswalk at Wampatuck where it meets Kimball. The committee will look into adding a stop sign on Wampatuck right before the crosswalk to make it a three-way stop. The committee also proposed that the town should add warning signs for drivers that there is a crosswalk there. Another area of concern has been the bend in the road on Upper Gardner Street, a right-angle turn. The corner at 261 Gardner has been the location of 3 crashes a year for the last 3 years. Residents have requested flashing lights on both sides of the corner to let drivers know it's coming. The next steps will be to secure the funding for the blinking lights and talk to the neighbors about this proposal. Our guest today is Maryellen Maguire-Eisen, Executive Director of the nonprofit Children's Melanoma Prevention Foundation. Maryellen, tell me about the Children's Melanoma Foundation. When did it start and what its focus is all
Well,
about?
first, Joe, thanks for inviting me here. This is something that I'm really passionate about. I started the foundation 16 years ago because I, as a nurse, saw skin cancer prevention as really important. Skin cancer is the #1 cancer in the United States, and one person dies every 45 minutes from it. I had worked in oncology and in dermatology, and I decided that for my last hurrah, I was going to focus on teaching children about sun protection and skin cancer prevention. So I started the foundation in the South Shore, and now it's moved through Massachusetts, and we also have been to a number of states that have invited us to do programs in their own communities or in different communities.
So your foundation for 16 years now has been working with both schools and the community at large?
Yeah. Half the time we're in schools, and we've been very fortunate to get into schools. So when I started the foundation, I wanted to deliver the program to children in schools because they're a captured audience, and you really have a great opportunity to teach. So I had contacted some local schools back at that time, and I found that some of them had skin cancer prevention curricula, but none of them were implementing it. So I decided that if we were going to really be successful in doing this, that we needed to write our curriculum. So we did that, a K through 12 curriculum, according to national standards and Massachusetts frameworks. And then that makes it much more attractive to administrators in schools because we can show time on learning. So we've incorporated all different aspects of education into our curriculum. So we've been very fortunate in getting into the schools. One of the things that's interesting about the schools is 90% of the schools that book us, rebook us the following year. And in many towns, when we've gotten into one school, it's been word of mouth that's gotten us into other schools in the town. So we've been successful. And the other thing is that students as well as teachers have rated the Sun Aware school program very highly. Here in Hingham Middle School, we teach every student in Hingham Middle School, and they rated our curriculum the best health program that they had gotten all year. So it's been terrific. What we try to do in the schools is make it fun and informative. So we want the kids to learn, but also to have fun, and for us to engage them in this lesson.
Now, the FDA recently has been promoting sun safety, sunscreen awareness and safety. Is that correct?
Well, the FDA is in charge of approving all of the sunscreens that are formulated into products in the United States. And there have been 16 approved products, of which 14 are now still available for companies to formulate. In February, the FDA came out with what they call a new rule about sun safety and quality. And they came out at that time in February and said only 2 of the sunscreens that are presently approved, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, which are physical blockers, are proven to be safe and effective. And the 12 other chemical sunscreens need more safety testing. So that was really an important thing that they came out. And we are in the community teaching people. One of the things that the FDA was concerned about, when they approved many of these sunscreens 40 years ago, people weren't using the recommended dose of 1 ounce per application every 2 hours. So to use sunscreen properly, if you're at the beach all day, a small bottle of sunscreen you're supposed to go through in 1 day. So that's a change in terms of how consumers use it. So they are now looking at safety. And one of the other things that's really interesting is that the FDA did conduct a small study of 4 of the chemicals that are available and formulated in sunscreens. And what they found was that within 2 hours, all of the sunscreens had blood levels that were above their arbitrary cutoff requiring further safety testing. So as they say, they're not sure what that means, but the FDA has gone back to the manufacturers and they have mandated that they do more safety testing. And this all came about because Congress in 2014 passed the Sunscreen Innovation Act, and they asked the FDA to fast track and approve some other sunscreens that have been in the pipeline but not yet approved. and to look at safety. So that runs out in November of this year. So it's going to be very interesting, and stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of news regarding this. I had written an op-ed which I had brought with me. It's is sunscreen safe and effective for your child? Because we're out teaching parents and coaches and teachers about how to protect children from the sun. And what I say in it, we do not know if these chemical sunscreens are not safe. We don't know. We don't have the information. But the FDA has come out and said mineral sunscreens are safe. So if parents are concerned about what product they're using, then they should choose one of the hundreds of products that have just titanium and zinc oxide in them.
So those are the two key ingredients that a parent or grandparent should be looking for when they're perusing the shelves.
If they're concerned about the chemicals.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And many people are concerned about the chemicals. So, in places like Hawaii and also in the Keys, they've outlawed some of the chemical sunscreens. In Europe, they have eliminated some of the sunscreens that we formulate. So I think that we need to see what's going to happen, and I'm really glad that the FDA has mandated requiring more safety data. So it's a really important thing for us.
Let's talk about some of the myths
Okay.
about sunscreen and sun safety, if you will.
Sure.
I'm going to read a couple of them. So that sunscreen prevents vitamin D absorption. Is that true?
Yes. So vitamin D is metabolized in our skin, and it's secondary to ultraviolet B radiation. Sunscreen blocks ultraviolet B and ultraviolet A. And the American Academy of Dermatology, as well as the National Council for Skin Cancer Prevention, say that you can get your vitamin D from diet and supplementation. Again, because skin cancer is the #1 cancer with over 5 million cases a year, they think it's more prudent to get your vitamin D with over 5 million sources than the sun. There are other experts who say 10 minutes 3 times a week is all you need to metabolize the levels of vitamin D that we need. So that's another one where we're not exactly sure. There's different experts with different opinions, but my recommendation is to practice sun safety and to take supplements.
Here's another question.
Yep.
Makeup, can it substitute for sunscreen?
Not adequately. So we don't use enough sunscreen we don't use enough makeup when we cover our face. We do not use makeup usually on our ears, on our neck. We see a lot of skin cancer on tips of ears, on necks. So you get some protection, but very minimal. I told you one of the things that we do in the schools is try to make it fun and informative. We do this in the community also. We have a UV reflectance video camera that we bring out. It not only shows you sun damage, so it highlights the pigmentary changes from the sun, but it also shows you proper sunscreen application. So the #1 place that we get our freckles is right here in our face. That's also the #1 place that we develop skin cancer. There are about 1 million basal cells in the United States just on our noses each year. So wherever the sun hits midday, when it's right above our head and strongest, is where we see the most skin cancer. So we see it here, tips of cheeks, ears, scalp. So makeup really doesn't cover enough.
And we talked about the fact that the application doesn't last all day.
Well, the thing about application is really interesting. One of the things that we're working on right now is we've introduced a bill into the State House so that kids can bring sunscreen to school. Sunscreen is an over-the-counter medication, again, controlled by the Food and Drug Administration. Kids can't bring it to school. In some school systems, what they do is they have parents sign a general consent like they do for Tylenol that also includes sunscreen so kids can, but in general they can't. So there's a new bill in the State House. It's been approved in 19 other states that kids can bring sunscreen to school because some kids are very sun sensitive and some kids might forget their sunscreen. Even if they have it in the school, then they can use it. Kids who are very fair complected, so what we call type 1 skin, redheads, very pale, always burn, never tan, they can sunburn in 15 minutes in in June. So one of the things I wanted to just touch on with you, which is a really interesting point that people do not know, UV rays peak in June. It's easier to get a sunburn in May than it is in August. In May, on average, UV is higher. And here in Massachusetts, it can be 50 degrees in May. So schools don't really appreciate that they're really exposing their kids to very high levels of UV. So some parents are aware of it. And sunscreen in the schools is a great idea for kids who are sun sensitive.
You know, I keep some sunscreen in my golf bag. Plus, I sail with some friends who have a boat, and they say, don't even bother to bring any. We've got enough sunscreen to last 10 years. Is there an expiration date on sunscreen?
Yes. So if it's marked on the sunscreen, there's a 3-year shelf life, so it'll be on the sunscreen. If there is no expiration date, then that sunscreen is good for 3 years. Okay, so yes, the expiration is important. You talked about your golf bag. A lot of people leave sunscreen in the car. That's not necessarily a good thing because heat can deactivate some of the ingredients in sunscreen. So we recommend that people don't leave them in the car, but to leave it in places like in your bag is a great idea. Golf bag is terrific.
Another myth is that people of color don't necessarily need to use sunscreen.
So that's an excellent question. And the reason that people think that is that people who look like me, I talked about type 1 skin, I'm considered type 2 skin. So I can burn easily, but I can tan. So I am sun sensitive, but I also have a big family history of skin cancer. So I've had people who've had a lot of skin cancer in my family. So I know that it's really important for me. The more melanin you have in your skin, the more natural protection you have. You have more melanin than I do. You've got more protection. We talked before the show that, you know, your family have sunburned. So we know that that's important. And I've been in the schools talking to students who've shared with me that oftentimes when they travel elsewhere to the Caribbean, or in this one case, a student whose family was from Thailand, he got a blistering sunburn when he went to visit his family in Thailand, because he thinks that the UV is similar to what we have home here, but it's very variable. And one of the things that we also recommend highly, there are wonderful UV apps that you can download on your phone. Some of them are also weather apps, so they can tell you if the storm is coming, and they give you a great idea of what the UV is. So UV, I told you, peaks in June. And here in Massachusetts, the highest it gets is 10 on a scale from 1 to 11 plus. But in June, I'm in schools where we'll check the UV at 9 in the morning. It can be 1, and by 11, it's 10. It's gone up 1,000%. Temperature's only increased a little bit. And that's why they teach you that midday sun is, you know, the most risky in terms of sun burning. So I think it's really terrific to have an app, because the opposite of that, I've been at beaches at 4 in the afternoon on a beautiful summer day, and the UV's 2. And you would think that you're at risk, but you're not. So it's really great to plan your activities around UV intensity.
Now, has it always been this level of concern, or perhaps could some of this be environmental related? In other words, as I had shared earlier, as a kid growing up and our family would go on vacation, my dad would lay on in the beach and in the sun all day long. He might get burned, he might not, but you would think that he would have developed skin cancer, which he didn't. But now, as you share, that it is the #1 cancer killing diagnostic, if you will, in this country.
Right.
So how relative is it with respect to our environment and the ozone?
So it's not the #1 killer.
Okay.
It's the #1 that we develop. So it's not that high up there in terms. There are about almost 10,000 deaths a year secondary to skin cancer. So lung cancer, colon cancer kills a lot more people. But still, the sheer numbers of people that get it, it's important. The other thing, some people develop other health problems. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia, for example, or lymphoma is associated with skin cancer. And people can develop that diagnosis and have a real problem in terms of skin cancer. People who have organ transplants, hearts, lungs, kidneys, second cause of death in them is skin cancer. and they tend to get what's called squamous cell skin cancers, and they tend to die of it. So you don't know what your future is going to hold for you. So it's important. But going back to your father, which is interesting, sunscreens back in that day only blocked the burning rays. They did not block the tanning rays. So people like myself, or even your father, could get really dark from being out in the sun. They found that as people used sunscreens back in those days, that people who used it were getting more and more skin cancers. Skin cancer kept going up and up, and they started to realize that it was the tanning rays that were really playing a role. And that's really important because indoor tanning became very popular, starting in the 1980s, and those machines were getting stronger and stronger, and the dose of radiation they were delivering was higher and higher. And skin cancer, melanoma, basal cell, and squamous cell in young people was happening within a decade of their indoor tanning exposures. So we know it's proven that the tanning rays cause skin cancer. The good news, we were instrumental in getting the tanning ban for minors here in Massachusetts. And all of the tanning salons, the Indoor Tanning Association has closed, and most tanning salons in this area have closed. There's only an occasional one. They are still available in gyms, and that's really a problem because I often see men who are twice as likely to develop melanoma and twice as likely to die of melanoma using these indoor tanning facilities at gyms, which is really too bad. Nice. So sunscreen, your father, dark complected. Bob Marley died of melanoma. So he developed his melanoma on his great toe. People think that he died of brain cancer, but he had metastatic melanoma to his brain, and he died at 36 years of age. So even someone as dark as he, and when I teach people of color, I will often share with them that they tend to get their melanomas in places where they're light complected, their palms, their soles, their nail beds. So it's really important for everybody to protect your skin. Yes, you are less at risk. Your father was less at risk because you have natural protection. I also have a family history. It might be some genetic component, but I and my family really need to protect themselves every day.
Where can our audience find more information about sun safety and the Children's Melanoma Foundation?
So our website is melanomaprevention.org.
Okay.
So org because it's a nonprofit foundation. And everything that we do or we've created is on that website for free download. We have been contacted by people around the globe to use our curriculum to partner in research. I had done a graduate research thesis when I was at Simmons on nurses' knowledge of melanoma and how it relates to clinical practice. And that study has been replicated by 4 other nurses around the world. And that's the beauty of internet, that you can share your resources, you can put people in contact. Presently, I'm working with 2 graduate students at UMass in Worcester on their research programs about skin cancer. We're also on social media. We have over 21,000 followers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Different platforms have different things. So Twitter, we tend to post the things that are research-based and scientific and information. And Facebook, every event we do in the community, we share on our Facebook page, and things that we think that are relevant and pertinent. One of the things I said in the beginning, our mission is to also to advocate for skin cancer prevention. I talked about the indoor tanning ban and the sunscreen bill, but we have an advocacy coordinator who works for us, who is at the State House, who's going to Washington, who's promoting protecting children through laws. And it's important for us to work this on both levels. So we go into the schools to teach kids because we know that, with seatbelts and teaching them back in the day, smoking cessation, teaching kids in school is the perfect place to do it. They really listen and they see you as an expert, and we'd really try to make it fun, and we've gotten great feedback. So we work on it both in educating kids as well as advocating. But again, all of our resources, we have free children's books and download them on Kindle and iBook. So our website is full of great resources. My op-ed is up there if anybody wants to download that. So there's a lot of great resources for people.
Now let's have that website address again, please.
Website is melanomaprevention.org, and our office is 781-875-1SPF. We take everybody and anybody's calls. Again, through social media, people have contacted us about concerns about their children. And as a nurse specialist with 4 other teachers with lots of expertise in skin cancer, we really try to advise them as best we can. I also brought with me for you, and this is available online for anybody, the FDA's proposed sunscreen changes. So this is really important. As I said, this is going to be coming out in November, so stay tuned. But I brought you a present. So that's something really cool for you. This is a UV bead attached to a paracord bracelet. So when you're up hiking on mountains, if you ever need something, this can be unwoven, and you've got a big long paracord, but this bead changes colors with UV. So we teach students that if it changes colors, so can you. So this is, in nursing, we call it a cue to action, and this is for you to have for your little. And another thing that we use in the schools, which is terrific, kids love, we give them a pencil, and on the pencil it says, moles are supposed to be smaller than an eraser head. And then they get to use the eraser, and we do that because we want them to start looking at their own skin and looking at the size of their moles. So kids will go and do that and put it over the mole. And if it's bigger than the eraser head, it's atypical. And at least they know that. So again, we try to make everything fun and informative. And I hope you like that.
This is so nice of you, and I thank you so much. I'm actually going to put it on right now.
I hope you'll never need it for emergency reasons.
Well, I agree, but
the UV bead, as well as that app that I told you about, is a great way to keep yourself safe, because I know you're concerned about that now.
Indeed I am. Maryellen Maguire-Eisen, Executive Director of the Children's Melanoma Prevention Foundation. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Appreciate it.
And thank you so much for my gift.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to having you back.
Thank you. Love to be here.
Our next guest today is Lori Tobin, member and co-producer of several education programs here at Harbor Media. Go first off, let's talk about kids and what that's all about.
Yeah, kids in general for me. Well, once you become a mom, they're in your world. And I just started when Jack was little. So when Jack was a little kid in school, he couldn't sit still. And I did take pity on his teachers, because I know that kid has got a lot of energy. And they had nothing for the kids at that age group. They had nothing. They didn't have, like, there was different sports that they had for older kids, but not for little kids. And so I went to the principal and I said, hey, can we do something for the little ones? Can we have like some type of a class so we can have them in the gym and running around, either after school or before school? And she said, go for it. So we did it in the afternoon, the first year in second grade. And then the next year, I did it in the mornings. And I said, well, she goes, I don't know if they'll come because 7:30 is early. I said, well, let's do it free. I ended up with 40 kids. So I grabbed a couple buddies and I said, I need help. So we had 40 kids in the gym running around. We had a lot of kindergartners, first graders, all the way up to fifth grade. We had a blast. It was so much fun. And so I've done that now for, I want to say 11 years. I'm going into my 11th year. But what has happened is the teachers would say, listen, make sure your son exercises like that. Make sure he's in that class before he has to do the MCAST, because he can sit down and he can focus. And not only him, all the other kids too. So it really made a big difference for them. And they were happier too, because they would go off to school and they had their energy out. So they were ready to sit down and catch up with the teachers. So from there, I started a cooking show in 2014, and I used my kitchen. So I had some of my students that were in my class helping me cook and make things, healthy food. And I did about 7 shows in my kitchen. And then I had met up with another group, and I had talked of doing another show, which never panned out. But then we found Harbor Media. So, and you and I have worked together because you've had me make some hats for you, because I manufacture sport Tobin, I make athletic apparel. And so anyways, you brought me in here, and I said, I want to do my show. I want to do my cooking show, and we'll call it Lori Tobin and Kids. And then we also did some crafts as well. So teaching kids how to cook, healthy, how to have fun. And I usually use foods that kids already know, because when you try something different, you can expect something different. So one little girl had peppers, never had them before. At the beginning of the show, I show them all the food. This is what we're going to do. Is this okay? Because I don't want any kid getting sick on the set. Oh yeah, that'll be fine. So this one little girl puts this omelet in her mouth with a pepper. And she was so close to just ruining the whole set. So we had to like cut and get that away from her really quickly. So we joked about it from that point in. But, you know, you just have to, with kids, stick with what they know. Because sometimes if you go a little too far out of the box, it's not going to be pretty. And then they're not happy. You can see them pouting on stage.
You bring a passion to your work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell me about where that first got started. Where did this energy and this focus come from? A typical parent might say, yeah, well, send them off to school. Let the schools take care of it. You're not that way. Why is that?
Well, I only have one son. I only have one child. So we have a lot of fun. Well, we did when we were younger. Now that he's older, you know, he's cool. You don't want to be seen with mom too often. But yeah, we used to have a blast. I mean, we used to do a lot of things together. And I coached him in soccer from like 2nd grade all the way up to 8th grade. I will say the younger years were way better. Junior high is tough, especially on the moms. So, but yeah, I mean, we always did things together, and we were a very close family because it's just the two of us. And my husband, being a sea captain, was away for a month and home a month. So we were stuck together a lot. So, so he's part of it. But you can, with kids are so open. They're like an open book. They don't have all this stuff going on. Do you know what I mean? I mean, kids, they don't, in general, the little ones really don't care how you look. It's if you're going to play and you know how to have a good time, they're okay with you, you know. But if you're like, have to, okay, well, sit down, students, and be this way and be that way. It's like, yeah, you know. So kids are open. Adults sometimes are hardwired. They're not as open as children can be. Some are, but mostly children are pretty open, and they like to have fun, and they like to laugh. And so I enjoy my passion for cooking and for being kids. That was an easy one.
Now that you are a member of Harbor Media,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how you and I got to work together
Yep.
on this project that's still in development.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to go back and revisit what really brought forth this burning passion to want to do this film, this documentary on vaping.
Well, I live in a small town, and so it's a peninsula, so you pretty much know all the kids around your son's age and grades above and grades below. And because I have coached soccer, because I have had an exercise program, I care about the kids. I mean, to me, they're my kids. I didn't give birth to them, but they're my kids. These kids I have grown up with, I care about them. And I'm watching some of them walking down the street, plumes of vaping smoke is coming up, and I'm just like, oh my Lord, this is not okay. And then I'm hearing stories, and I can't divulge where I'm hearing them from, but it's pretty, they're true, these stories about the vaping. And so it's like, how can you not try to do something? And luckily, Fazad knows how to do documentaries, as you and I have found out. They take a long time, and I'm not a patient person, but I'm getting there. So it's been a lot of hard work, but I think it's going to be pretty spectacular when it's done, because we've got a lot of great people that we have interviewed, and we've got couple of families that have gotten involved in it, and we're hoping that it'll make some changes in the laws, and families who don't understand this vaping thing will learn something from it. Basically to help. We want to help families and help kids.
There's been a lot of publicity around the dangers of vaping. In fact, just recently it was announced that here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we had our first reported death associated with vaping.
Last night, yeah.
And equally, I believe there was also perhaps a first reported gun violence associated with a transaction gone bad around vaping pods.
Yeah.
So it truly has come home to roost in a very big way. During this process of this journey of developing this documentary on the dangers of adolescent vaping, I'm curious to know, what have you learned? What were some of the aha moments? And I'll share some of mine with you as well. So let's talk about that for a minute.
All right. I didn't know that kids were ordering stuff online and having it sent to the neighbor's house and then going and getting it. Very sneaky. They also open their windows so that when they're vaping, the smoke can go out. And, also found out that kids on teams force younger kids to vape, bully them, which that doesn't sit well with me as well. And I smoked when I was a teenager. I quit. So they hooked me years ago. And the fact that they're hooking kids again, just really, it's not okay. Not okay. So those are a few things that I found out that I didn't know. Also, the amount of damage it does to your lungs.
I was surprised that kids in the schools were avoiding the bathroom throughout the entire school day.
Yeah, that's another one too.
For fear of being caught when one of the vaping detectors goes off and they end up being rounded up and lose their privileges on after-school sports and other activities, that they literally were holding themselves throughout the entire day until they got home.
Yeah.
That is so sad.
That's very sad.
I was surprised to learn that the kids, as ingenious and creative as they are, concealing them in their clothes, the boys in their sleeves, the girls perhaps in their bra straps or wherever they can conceal it. I was also surprised with the interview with the pediatrician who shared the fact that the vaping manufacturers took a page out of the tobacco industry's playbook in creating mint and menthol vaping pods, which is the quickest pathway to addiction by way of those vaping pens, because the menthol and the mint kind of like cools the throat just long enough for the nicotine and or other substance to get to the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
That was a real eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
I also think that parents who were led to believe that e-cigarettes was a safe alternative to the traditional nicotine-based cigarette. Yeah. That it was okay for their kids to vape in the way that the kids explained it to the parents. Well, everybody vapes, it's no big deal. Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as bad as the regular cancer sticks, so to speak. Yeah. And now learning what we know, you feel as if you've been duped.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That conversation we had with the mother whose son had been using vaping for 4 straight years in high school to the point of damaging himself and couldn't play hockey. Yeah. I remember asking her that question, like, well, knowing what you know now, how do you feel? And it was so profound to hear her share that she felt as if she had failed as her son, at least in that particular instance, as a parent. Yeah. That you're here to protect your child. Yeah. And so you allow something to happen, mistakenly believing that it was okay, that it was safe. Yeah. That's got to be very painful.
It has to be. It has to be very tough, which is probably why it's taken us a while to get families to share, because they feel that.
But if families can share their experience without necessarily, exposing their child's identity, and we do have ways to safeguard their privacy, but still capture the authenticity of their story, their experience. Yeah. Because I think it's important that as a parent who may have a child that's actively vaping, if they can share their experience in a way that another parent, as they say, with knowledge they are forearmed and better equipped to protect their child, then you're doing some good.
You are doing good. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. No, I would agree. it's just very, very, it's like a spider web because there's so much information and you love your kid and you'd hate to think that your kid's being that devious. And it's just, and the addiction to nicotine makes them very angry. That was one of the things that was interesting with that mother. She said the anger that came out of her son. And I've heard that, and they said that last night too, about the anger that comes out of kids. You know, from the tobacco makes them angry if they need pot and they haven't had pot. I mean, if they need tobacco and they haven't had a vape or a hit of the jewel. And so that was very interesting because there's anger and they don't talk about the anger. And even in the news, they really don't talk about the anger, you know? So that's a surprise.
Now, you're in the fundraising part of the process now where, in effect, to complete this documentary, you've set up a nonprofit in which to facilitate contributions to help get this film completed?
I haven't set up a nonprofit. Okay. We're using a nonprofit.
You're using
Filmmakers Collaborative is a nonprofit, and they will be able to take the money because they are a nonprofit, and then they will give it to us so we can pay everybody who's been doing the cameras and interviewing and all the work that has been put into it, the editing. There's a lot to it, and website. We even have a song coming.
Tell me about the song coming. Not that I want you to recite the lyrics and the like, but who made this song? How did you get this song started?
Well, I went to the music director at the Hull High School, Ian Barkin, and I asked him, I said, do you think the kids would like to do a rap for this documentary that we're doing, Taking a Toke? And I gave him a couple of lines and words. I said, something, play around with that. And he goes, yes, they would love that because they're very creative and they like to do that stuff. So they're almost finished. They've got like one more thing and then we'll be able to use that. I think it's kind of cool to have actual kids who are experiencing this generation of vaping actually writing a song about, the evils of vaping and taking a toke and the juuling. So I think it should be pretty cool.
Where would you like to see this film? Who should see this film? Who's it intended for?
It's for parents and for lawmakers, but for people that want to understand what's going on with this because, maybe you don't have a kid, but maybe you have a brother or a sister that are juuling. They need to see this and understand it too. A lot of people really don't get it. I was at a party, it was a gathering of friends, a cookout, and there was two women that were there, and I won't tell who their names were, but one of them says she's trying to quit and she's been using the vaping, the juul. And the other woman said her son likes to try everything and he's doing it. And I'm saying, they asked me about it and I said, well, I will see Dr. Witkoff this coming week and I will report back to you. And I said, but what I can tell you from everything that I'm seeing is I wouldn't touch those with a 10-foot pole, And so then after seeing Dr. Witkoff, he said, if you want to not be smoking and to quit smoking sensations, then what you need to do is you need to go see a doctor, get a patch and get the gum. And now, because they have banned it, did you know what Charlie did?
Yes.
Charlie Baker?
Yeah.
So if you're over 18, you can go to any pharmacy and you can get the gum and you can get the patch for there's a fee that they charge you. What do they call that?
Copay or something?
Copay.
All right.
That's it. Mm-hmm. If you're under 18, you have to go see a pediatrician. But he's making it really easy so that you don't have to struggle with trying to quit. So I think that's wonderful. Kudos to him.
You've interviewed school resource officers, DARE officers. Mm-hmm. You've interviewed...
And you as well.
Dentists.
Yep.
You've interviewed neuroscientists. You've
yep.
interviewed counselors, mm-hmm. addiction counselors.
Mm-hmm.
Included interviews with school superintendent,
yep.
head of the American Academy of Pediatrics,
yep.
and the State Attorney General Maura Healey, among others, on this documentary. Let's talk about what it's like to be a member of Harborview Media, and what advice might you give to someone who's thinking about perhaps joining Harborview Media as a member?
Well, you'll be very busy.
Okay.
But if you told me a year ago I'd be meeting with Maura Healey and doing all this this that we're working on, I would have thought you were crazy. I could see myself here doing a cooking show with kids, but then it's a creative melting pot where people just are very, very good at helping each other do their best. So it brings out the best in everybody. And if you don't know something, sometimes they can teach you and you can learn. So if you're open to learning and growing, this is a wonderful atmosphere. But yeah, I mean, they're making like dreams come true for me because I've got 4 shows and I'm enjoying working on them. And I might be able to really make a difference we'll be able to do something with this our vaping documentary, Taking a Toke. So.
You mentioned 4 shows, one of which I'm just learning about, Green Thumb.
Getting a green thumb.
Tell me more about that one.
Okay, well, I'm all about families because I think that families are very important, and I think children are a blast. So if you can teach them things at a younger age, they're liable to grow with it and learn how to be better and better. So we never really grew vegetables. I'm one of 8 kids. My parents had enough to do. But we didn't grow any vegetables. So since I've been married, I grow a few things. So we went to the Hingham Middle School and we found the kids from the green team and the 2 teachers, and they helped us put together the show. We started from seeds and we did tomatoes. I think we did basil. We did parsley, chives, cucumbers. And so we started them as seeds and grew them by the window until they were big enough to go outside. So we always add a joke of the day because you've got to make things light and funny. And then we also do fun facts because there's so much information out there. And it's just kind of nice to know, wow, I didn't know that. And then we had composting. So that was fun. So we've done, I think, 3 or 4 shows. They're editing the last show. And then we'll see where we go for next spring. We might bring it to another school and go with littler kids too. We'll see. But it's just kind of cool because they have recycling here in the composting, and they also have these wonderful beds that you can grow vegetables and things in. So that's what that's about. And then I cut off gloves and the green thumb so they can do getting a green thumb. So it's fun. It's fun. But it's just something to teach kids and teach families. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's not a lot of work. So I'm not really a master gardener, but the teachers know what they're doing, so that's helpful. And also Holly Hill Farm, there was a woman that came out and helped us there. So it was good.
Well, playing in the dirt, as I like to call it, when you can instill that love for gardening in young people at an early age, it stays with them.
So we also have one called Bow to Stern, and that is for families that are thinking of getting into boating. Oh. My husband is a master mariner, so he can basically drive any size ship. And he used to be a drill ship captain on the drill ships that are, I think they're 800 feet long and they have an oil derrick, and he'd go around the world drilling holes in the ocean floor to get oil. And so anyways, he is very into boating, and we have sailboats. And I didn't boat much as a kid, but since I've been together with Adam, we boat. And we've always taken Jack with us. And that's challenging when you have little ones on a sailboat because you don't want them going overboard and you have to keep them entertained. So it starts off with kayaks and also paddle boards. So if you have a small family, try a few things there, get people used to the water, and then we go to motorboats. So we have a Boston Whaler. We did that, and then we got off onto the sailboat. And we'd like to do more boats too, but the first season I think we have enough for 2 or 3 shows, and they're still being edited. But it's just a good thing for families to do. Put the computers down, put the phones down, get out on the water and have some fun. And it's just a very good family thing to do. Plus you're teaching them about being on the water, and the ocean is beautiful, or a lake, or a river, wherever you end up going. And we get into boat safety, and we get into, making sure that you take care of yourself in the sun as well, so you don't burn. I try to do a joke there too. I always try to add in jokes and fun facts and information because I just kind of like that stuff. I think education, you're never too old to learn some fun things.
That's right. Lifelong learning.
Yeah, exactly. And Adam's very handy, so you get to see like the engine that he installed, and he fixes things, and it's good to be able to do that stuff. And boating can be year-round because in the winter you can take a boating safety course with your family. And then if you go away, you can go rent boats, you can do things. So I think boating is a wonderful experience for a family and for people that just have, even if you don't have a family, it's a good thing to do. So that's my passion and my love also for sailing as well.
So let's say let's review the titles of the shows that you're doing
Sure.
again.
Okay, so it's Getting a Green Thumb,
Getting the Green Thumb.
Laurie, Tobin, and Kids, and that's cooking and crafts a little bit.
Yes.
The other one is Bow to Stern with Adam and Laurie. And then we also have Taking a Toke, the documentary on vaping, which should be airing. I wouldn't be surprised if it was done before the end of the year. So it should be fun. Yeah, I think it'll be good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, Laurie.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's get you back again.
All righty.
All right.